The public phase of the War Within Alpha went live just a few hours ago. We jumped into it and had a lot of fun. This is just the first taste, but we were really impressed. This might be the most polished alpha that we've ever seen from Blizzard. We streamed a full run through of the first zone, the Isle of Dorn, and I'm gonna share our thoughts on that. But first, we've noticed that over half of our audience aren't subscribed to the channel. What are you waiting for? Me to tell you to go subscribe? Well, go ahead. Alright, I'll start out by talking about the questing, the first zone, and our experience in playing through it. The first zone you quest through in the War Within is the Isle of Dorn, and it is a dwarf-themed zone. We got vibes from Tiergard Sound in this area. I also thought I recognized some trees and some of the grass patterns from Azuna, and a lot of architecture from the dwarf sections of Twilight Highlands. We were able to dragon ride from the very start of questing, which is great. Also, dragon riding has been renamed to dynamic flying, and it's been expanded to virtually all flying mounts, which is also really awesome. We spent the last hour of the stream, actually I think over an hour, just flying around and like playing with different flying mounts and comparing which ones had good animations and which ones were goofy looking. In terms of the quests, we had a little bit of jank here and there. A few quests, maybe they didn't share their progress correctly, or they did share their progress, but then when one of us handed it in, the NPC disappeared for the other person. With that being said, it was a pretty smooth, fun experience. Most of the quests worked exactly as intended, and we didn't really hit any that felt like big log jams. Maybe that will be different when there are 10,000 people all slammed into the same zone on launch day, but we both agreed. This zone felt really good, especially for an alpha. There was also a good mix of story quests, objective quests, and just kinda killing stuff. We did the entire campaign, all the side quests we could find, and I think that only took us about 2 to 2.5 hours. We also weren't moving as quickly as we could. We stopped to talk about things while we were streaming several times, and I still felt like the zone moved at a pretty steady pace. We never really felt held up for a long time, other than maybe the few instances when we had a buggy quest or two. We also got our first taste of Delves, the new outdoor, instanced content that's supposed to sort of function as a single-player alternative to raiding and Mythic Plus dungeons. You can do them in groups, and we did. They're definitely influenced by the good parts of Scenarios, Island Expeditions, and Torghast. Yes, I know I just said the words good and Torghast in the same sentence, but I actually do think Delves are really good. I'm a big fan. I think they fixed one of the biggest crimes Torghast committed by not being a mandatory chore for alternative power progression, but by just kind of giving out regular gear and cosmetic rewards like every other avenue of endgame. In the delve we did, we basically pushed a minecart full of explosives through a cave with Bran Bronzebeard, killed a bunch of spiders, killed their big spider boss, and looted some stuff. I got gloves, I think. And then we got out. It was sort of like a mini dungeon. It took about 10 minutes or so. One of the new expansion features that we got asked a lot about during the stream was Warbands. Warbands are basically an account-wide bank. You can share some currencies between all of your characters freely, and you can even share some gear in a way that sort of operates similarly to bind-on-account gear. This also includes a reworked character screen for your top 4 characters. It isn't quite as cool as the demo that was showed off at BlizzCon with all of the characters kind of lounging around in different poses, but I think it's a start. Ian acknowledged the BlizzCon version was a custom animation. That's gotten some criticism, but I still think that this actually looks really good. It's a big improvement over the old character screen, and you know, if for some reason you are nostalgic for that old character screen, you can switch to that if you want. They are planning to make more throughout the expansion, and hopefully we'll get a bit more control over character poses and get to kind of have some guys lounging around, sitting by the fire, back up against a wall looking cool with your arms crossed. I think that would be nice. There are also some rumors of your warband characters showing up out in the world while you're playing the game. For example, I could run a follower dungeon on my rogue, and instead of one of Blizzard's pre-made NPCs with a name and a whole bunch of voice lines showing up, my warrior Buttfoot might just show up to tank. This isn't confirmed, it's just something that's been rumored. I hope it comes true. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Alright, now I want to talk about alt-friendliness. Blizzard has followed up Dragonflight being the most alt-friendly expansion ever by making the War Within the most alt-friendly expansion ever. Yeah, it somehow got even better. When you reach level 80 on a character, you get an account-wide 5% XP bonus, and that's permanent, and it stacks. It goes all the way up to 25% bonus XP. So there is a huge reward for people who want to level a bunch of characters on an account, and instead of having to wait until like patch 0.5 or 0.7 or 1.5 or whatever, it's in from the very beginning. As I said before, you have dragon riding, technically dynamic flight in from the very beginning, so it's easy to fly on all of your characters and just kind of get around and do all the quests and level up. There's also account-wide reputations and achievements. That is a really, really welcome change. And you even share flight paths account-wide. You can also share map exploration with a new toy. This is all on top of all of the Warband system that allows you to share currency across characters. Not all of them, there are some character-specific currencies, of course, but a lot of stuff that doesn't really need to be character-specific will just kind of be account-wide. This is really good for people who like playing alts, and as Blizzard has repeatedly acknowledged in recent interviews, most people who play World of Warcraft like playing alts, so it's good for everybody. Finally, I'd like to wrap up with some thoughts on the classes I've played so far in the alpha. We're definitely going to play more, 100%. But at least so far I've gotten a dabble, mainly in Monk, both Windwalker and Brewmaster, and then I've played a little bit of Paladin and Warrior on training dummies. I have to play them a little bit. I love them. I had to at least get a taste. So Monk has gotten a whole rework to its entire class talent tree, and to give the brief version, it's really, really good. They removed basically all of the annoying talents. White Tiger statue is gone. Interrupt is conveniently located. The bad pathing has been fixed. The Monk talent tree mainly consists now of choices between defensives, crowd control, and group utility. Basically, they fixed most of my complaints with the class. I put in my notes, Monk is back on the menu, boys. That's how I feel about Monk right now. Windwalker has gotten a significant rework. There has been a massive reduction in bar bloat. It's really good looking thus far. Just to give some examples of the way they've reduced some of the bar bloat, one of the main talents that you now pick up as Windwalker, very high in the Windwalker tree, makes it so that every 15 seconds, your next Tiger Palm will automatically cast Expel Harm and do 200% damage, 100% extra damage. This is great. This is a way to remove the keybind of Expel Harm, and they compensate for it by giving you some more healing and other mechanisms. That's all fine, but they basically take that Expel Harm keybind away, so you don't have to press it anymore. Similarly, Chi Wave has now been turned into a passive. It's every 15 seconds when you cast Rising Sun Kick or Vivify, you automatically release a Chi Wave. This makes a lot of talents that synergize with Chi Wave into a lot more powerful option. They've just done a lot of really good things to reduce the number of keybinds that Windwalker has been saddled with for all of Dragonflight, and playing it in leveling, which isn't like the most competitive environment by any means, but still, it felt insanely strong. I felt like the god of death. I was just walking around two-shotting everything I interacted with. I absolutely loved it. I played around with both of the Windwalker hero talent trees, the Shadowpan tree, which is mostly a collection of passive damage procs and defensive, offensive buffs. I didn't really find it to be super interesting mechanically, but it deals huge damage, and huge damage is always fun, so I did think it was very fun, and I like it. Conduit of the Celestials was the other hero talent tree option, and I liked it a bit more mechanically. It has an on-use cooldown as its main skill. It is a 90-second cooldown, and it deals an ungodly amount of damage. 1,000,000 damage at level 70 with very bad gear on a 90-second cooldown. I was a little bit nervous coming into the beta, coming into the alpha, with this being an active skill-based talent tree, but with the reduction in bar bloat, I think it works really well. As for the rest of the talent tree, the rest of the Conduit of the Celestials talent tree, I found that it was basically just a spec full of random Celestial procs. They do damage, they buff you, they heal you, they feel pretty good, and I do like the theme a lot. I like seeing Mulan and Chi-Ji and Xuan and Nizhao. I like seeing them all pop up and do stuff. That's fun, but you know, it's basically just like random proc. Not really like stuff you have a ton of control over. As for Brewmaster Monk, I did play with that a little bit as well in the leveling process. They also have the Shadowpan talent tree, so again, it's basically the same as it is for Windwalker, but noticeably it did deal a lot less damage, so it's not as interesting. Since mechanically it's still a little simple, with the main appeal being damage output, with that going down, maybe it's not as interesting then. I do think it can be good in AoE situations, so mainly Mythic Plus, but I didn't really love it while leveling. The other hero talent tree for Brewmaster Monk is Master of Harmony, and it has absolutely insane bonuses. It gives you 2 Celestial Brew cooldowns, it makes you pool up 20% of all the damage you deal into a buff, and then it converts that into damage every time you use Celestial Brew. This makes Celestial Brew into a DPS cooldown, but it circumvents the one thing that drives me crazy about combining defensive and offensive cooldowns for tanks by not punishing you for sitting on your defensive cooldown. You just pool up even more damage. This is great. This is the perfect way to combine a damage and defensive cooldown for a tank. There's just one downside with it. A lot of the talents for this tree aren't yet implemented. NYI, as they say. So it's a half-finished tree, and unfortunately it felt like it. It's great on paper. I cannot wait to experience the real deal. I literally think this could be the best tank in the game, but it's just not finished. It's a half-completed house. You can't really live in that. You're gonna get rained on. Now, as for playing with Warrior, I played around with Colossus. I was kind of apprehensive about that. They added this skill Demolish for Colossus, and it basically just gives you Fists of Fury or Eye Beam or Fell Devastation as a prot warrior. Yes, it's a channeled skill. It gives you some damage reduction, it makes you crowd control immune, you're still able to block parry, channel, blah blah blah, and it deals a lot of damage. But I don't really think it's all that fun. You can't really move. You're stuck standing still, channeling for a couple of seconds, and that's not the best. I also thought the animation with a sword and a shield kinda left a little bit to be desired. I also played around with the Mountain Thane talent tree, just again on some training dummies. I got a lot of lightning damage procs. It was pretty fun, pretty cool. Not really all that interesting mechanically though. It's mostly just you get some damage procs when you use your AoE skills. I think it'll be good in Mythic Plus, but I think it'll be pretty simple. It kind of needs a little bit more going on mechanically for it to really push Prot Warrior up from where it's at right now. Warrior has also gotten a class talent rework, and there are some good things in there. Shockwave has been moved up to be an easier to access talent, but then some of the talents that you use down toward the bottom of the tree, Thunderous Roar, have been nerfed, and that's actually kind of disappointing. I think the biggest positive takeaway I can come up with here is that you do get Berserker Rage by default at level 12 now. You don't have to talent into it, and I was hopeful that Intervene would be easier and cheaper to pick up in the talent tree, or maybe just also be baseline, but unfortunately that doesn't really seem to be the case. I'm not as thrilled with the Warrior talent rework, the class talent tree rework, as I was with the Monk one. Then finally I played around with Paladin on some training dummies for just a little bit, just kind of wanted to get a feel for it. And I love it. I'm absolutely in love with Templar Paladin. It's amazing. It basically just adds a huge 5 holy power cooldown after you use Eye of Tyr. It's like a 1-2 combo. You hit Eye of Tyr, then you have 5 holy power. You press the button again, and you do a gargantuan amount of damage, and you just start raining hammers. Just continuously raining hammers. They do tons of damage. They give you a small damage reduction bonus as well. The other talent tree is Lightsmith, which grants a big damage or defensive bonus to yourself or to other players on a 1-minute cooldown. It's sort of like a combination of an external cooldown like Power Infusion or Pain Suppression, but it's smart. If you cast it on another player, you also get the bonus. If you cast it on yourself, another player will get the bonus. The only real problem I have with this is that it's just not as fun as doing tons of damage and raining hammers all the time. It clearly is going to be very strong in group play. It might actually add more total damage than Templar, especially if Templar is kind of an outperforming front runner early on in the beta and then winds up getting nerfed toward the end. But it does kind of seem a bit like a chore, or a little bit of a bummer to look at this really, really cool one that's super fun and very selfish, personal damage oriented. And then, oh, here's this group utility one that I am obligated to take because people will yell at me if I don't use it. In either case, I still think that Paladin is looking like an absolute beast of a tank going into the next expansion. Definitely looking like it's going to be one of the best ones around. But I've only looked at half of the tanks so far, and I really haven't taken that deep of a dive yet. So that's our first look at The War Within. We both really enjoyed it. The first zone was really well made, the alt-friendliness is extremely appealing, and the hero talents and Windwalker rework are great. And this is just the first look at the next expansion. It looks great, we're definitely going to keep looking, keep playing around with more classes as things progress, and we can't wait to do that. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.